the Hollywood Unapologetic Podcast with Orlando Delbert, Filmmaking Essentials. And just so you know, this is part of a series we're doing on the democratization of filmmaking that's happening right now. You can find links for more info, books, even merch down in the descriptions.
Good to be here.
Today, we're tracing the journey of artificial intelligence, really from its earliest ideas right up to now, looking at how it fits into immersive tech, its global impact.
And crucially, what it all means for the new Hollywood generation.
Exactly. So whether you're deep in the tech weeds or just curious about AI, we want to unpack what's really going on.
Right. And, this whole idea of creating artificial beings, it's not new at all. It goes way back.
You mean like myths and stuff?
Absolutely. Think about ancient myths like Talos, the bronze giant protecting Crete, or stories from the Middle Ages about artificial men, golems. And it wasn't just stories. You had actual inventors building these amazing
Automata, like clockwork figures.
Sort of, but often much more sophisticated. People like Yan Shi in ancient China, hero of Alexandria al-Jazari during the Islamic Golden Age. They were building complex mechanical devices. It shows this long-standing human fascination, this urge to create artificial life or intelligence.
Okay, so it's an old dream. How did we get from, say, a mythical golem or a clever automaton to actual AI research?
Well, the big shift started with formal logic, formal reasoning, understanding the rules of thought, essentially. That, combined with the birth of computer science, laid the real groundwork.
Made it possible to actually build something based on logic.
Exactly. And then you hit this key period, roughly 1941 to 56. That's what many call the birth of artificial intelligence. This is when foundational ideas pop up.
Like the Turing test.
That's probably the most famous one, yeah. Alan Turing proposing this test, can a machine fool a human into thinking it's also human? Still a huge concept today.
Definitely. What else was happening then? It sounds like a fertile period.
It really was. Researchers started looking at the brain for inspiration. You had Hebbian theory, the idea that neural connections strengthen with use. Neurons that fire together, wire together.
The beginnings of neural networks.
The very early ideas, yes, which led to early artificial neural network concepts. Plus, you saw the first cybernetic robots being built, and even early AI for playing games. And, crucially, symbolic reasoning took off.
Symbolic reasoning, meaning AI manipulating symbols like math or logic.
Precisely. Like the logic theorist program in 1955 by Newell and Simon, it could actually prove mathematical theorems. It was groundbreaking stuff. And all this culminated in the Dartmouth Workshop in 56.
Famous Dartmouth Workshop.
Yeah, that's widely seen as the moment AI became a formal field of study. It really kicked off the whole cognitive revolution that followed.
Okay, so AI is officially launched. What happened next? Was there immediate success?
There was a period of, early successes from about 56 to 74. And yes, there were some impressive results early on. Computers were solving algebra word problems.
Things that seemed like pure human intelligence back then.
Right. Proving geometry theorems, even learning basic English. The optimism was immense. Some top researchers genuinely predicted fully intelligent machines within maybe 20 years.
Wow, 20 years, that's ambitious.
Hugely ambitious. And that optimism brought in funding, especially from places like DARPA in the US. You also saw programs like ELIZA.
The chatbot psychiatrist.
That's the one, simulating conversation. And researchers like Minsky and Paper took this micro-worlds approach, studying AI in simplified controlled environments, like the blocks world, SHRDLU. Trying to understand intelligence by limiting the problem space. And neural network research continued with things like perceptrons.
It sounds like things were really moving. But then we hit the first AI winter around 74. What went wrong? Why did the optimism fade?
Reality started to bite, basically. Several things happened. One, computers just weren't powerful enough yet for the really complex problems AI researchers wanted to tackle.
Hardware limitation.
Exactly. Then there was the problem of intractability or combinatorial explosion. As problems got just a bit more complex, the number of possible steps or solutions just ballooned exponentially. It became computationally impossible to explore them all.
Like trying every possible move in chess, but for, everything.
Kind of, yeah. And then there's Moravec's paradox. This was a surprise.
What's that?
It's the observation that things humans find easy, like seeing, moving around, picking things up, are incredibly hard for AI. But things we find hard, complex math, logic AI could often do quite well.
Huh. That's backwards from what you might expect.
Totally. It highlighted how much unconscious processing goes into our basic skills, honed by evolution. And replicating that, especially common sense, turned out to be monumentally difficult. How do you program knowing that water is wet or that you can't be in two places at once?
Right, the sheer breadth of just stuff we know.
Exactly. Representing that knowledge and reasoning with it, a massive hurdle. So funding started to dry up. The Mansfield Amendment in the U.S. pushed DARPA towards more short-term, mission-focused research, which hurt basic AI exploration.
And I suppose people started asking harder questions, too, philosophically.
Yes, definitely. Thinkers like Hubert Dreyfus were very critical, questioning if symbolic AI could ever truly replicate human understanding. John Searle's Chinese room argument came later but tapped into similar doubts. Even Joseph Weissenbaum, ELIZA's creator, became concerned about the ethical implications. But research didn't stop entirely. Logic programming, things like Prolog, continued, as did work on knowledge representation like frames.
Okay, so a cool down period. But then things heated up again in the 1980s with the boom. What drove that?
That was mainly driven by expert systems. These were AI programs designed to capture the knowledge of human experts in narrow domains like medical diagnosis or geological exploration.
So practical applications people could see.
Right. They seemed to offer real business value. This brought back government funding and sparked what some called the knowledge revolution, focusing on how to encode and use expert knowledge.
And were there other new directions emerging in the 80s besides expert systems?
Oh, yes. It wasn't just about expert systems. Neural networks made a comeback under the banner of connectionism. The PDP group, Rumelhart and McClelland, published influential work.
So brain-inspired AI was back in vogue.
It was. And robotics research shifted too, with people like Rodney Brooks arguing for embodied reason, intelligence emerging from interaction with the physical world, not just abstract symbols. You also saw growth in soft computing, probabilistic reasoning, and reinforcement learning, different approaches to handling uncertainty and learning from trial and error.
Then came another winter, the second AI winter in the late 80s, early 90s. What caused that one?
Yeah, the bloom came off the rose for expert systems. They proved expensive to build and maintain, and often quite brittle. They only worked well within their very specific domain. Plus, the specialized hardware built just for AI, like Lisp machines.
Right, those dedicated machines.
They became less necessary as regular desktop computers got way more powerful. So that market collapsed. All this damaged AI's reputation again, and the field kind of fragmented into more specialized sub-areas, people focusing on machine learning or computer vision or natural language processing rather than the grand goal of general AI.
It really does seem like a cycle. Hype, investment, limitations, disillusionment, then maybe a new approach emerges.
That's a pretty good summary of the history up to the early 90s, yeah. But then things started to change more fundamentally.
Leading into the current era, the big data, deep learning AGI period, starting mid-2000s. What was different this time?
Several huge factors came together. First, the internet generated unbelievable amounts of data. Big data, text, images, video, fuel for machine learning. Second, computing power, especially GPUs, graphics processing units, became incredibly powerful and accessible.
GPUs originally for gaming, right?
Yeah.
But they turned out to be great for AI.
Exactly. Their parallel processing architecture was perfect for the math involved in training neural networks. And that combination, massive data and powerful hardware, enabled the breakthrough of deep learning.
Deep learning. That feels like the key term of the last decade or so.
It really is. Around 2012, models like AlexNet achieved stunning results on image recognition benchmarks, far surpassing previous methods. This kicked off a revolution. You had crucial data sets emerge, like labeled faces in the wild, and especially ImageNet.
Fife Lai's project, right? Millions of labeled images.
Yes, ImageNet was absolutely pivotal for training image recognition models, and things like Google's Word2Vec in 2013 showed how deep learning could understand relationships between words. Plus, IBM's Watson winning Jeopardy! In 2011 was a huge public demonstration of AI's language capabilities.
Watson was impressive. It felt different.
It was. Deep learning started delivering state-of-the-art results across speech recognition, machine translation, object detection, you name it. And with this success, the old dream of artificial general intelligence, AGI AI with human-like flexibility and learning ability came back into focus. Companies like DeepMind and OpenAI became major players pushing towards that goal.
And that brings us right up to the present day, this large language models AI boom.
Pretty much. The invention of the transformer architecture in 2017 was another massive leap, especially for handling language. It allowed models to be scaled up dramatically.
Leading to things like GPT-3.
Exactly. OpenAI's GPT-3 in 2020, DeepMind's Gato in 2022. These large language models, or LLMs, showed startling abilities to generate coherent text, translate, write code, answer questions. Their capabilities sparked debate. Are we seeing the first glimmers of AGI?
And then came ChatGPT.
Right. Before that, you had early public generative tools like 15.ai for voice cloning in 2020, but ChatGPT's public release in late 2022 just blew the doors open. Millions of people suddenly had direct experience interacting with a very capable AI.
It really put AI in everyone's hands, or at least on their screens.
Absolutely. And the pace hasn't slowed. You see things like specialized models like ChatGPT Gov for government use, massive infrastructure projects like Stargate LLC being planned by OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle, MGX announced early 2025. The investment and development are just accelerating. Though concerns are growing too, calls for pauses, debates about safety and alignment.
It's definitely a moment of intense activity and maybe some uncertainty. Okay, let's pivot slightly. Bringing this back to our series focus, the democratization of filmmaking in this new Hollywood generation. How does all this AI development connect with immersive tech like VR?
This is where it gets really interesting for creators. AI and VR are converging in powerful ways. AI isn't just in VR, it's making VR better and more accessible.
So, what's AI doing within virtual reality?
Well, several things. Machine learning can analyze how you behave in a VR space, where you look, what you interact with, to personalize the experience, maybe change the story or environment based on your actions.
Making it more dynamic, less prescripted.
Exactly. Then there's natural language processing. Imagine talking naturally to characters in VR or just using voice commands instead of complex controllers. NLP makes that possible.
That would feel much more immersive.
Definitely. And computer vision is huge for VR. Tracking your body movements accurately, recognizing objects in the virtual world, mapping the physical space so you don't bump into walls. AI underlies a lot of that. It's even used to optimize rendering, making the graphics look better and run smoother, reducing lag, which is crucial for avoiding motion sickness.
Okay, so AI enhances the core VR experience. What about interacting within VR?
We're seeing AI-powered virtual assistants, chatbots, intelligent avatars, characters you can have meaningful interactions with. Think of guides, companions, or even adversaries driven by AI. And really importantly for filmmakers, AI-driven content creation tools.
Tools that help build the VR worlds themselves.
Yes. Tools that could help generate 3D models, textures, maybe even draft dialogue or scene descriptions. This has the potential to seriously lower the barrier to entry for creating sophisticated VR experiences, which fits right into that democratization theme.
Making it easier for independent creators to build immersive worlds.
Potentially, yes. AI is also being explored for immersive storytelling itself, creating dynamic narratives that change based on viewer choices, or using procedural generation to create vast, explorable story worlds that feel alive. And finally, analytics. AI can analyze how users engage with a VR film or experience, giving creators insights into what's working, where people get confused, what emotionally resonates.
Like superpowered audience testing almost.
In a way, yeah. Institutions are popping up too, like Rowan University's MAVRC Center, launched in 2023, specifically focused on this intersection of AI and VR.
This convergence sounds like it has massive global implications, not just for entertainment.
Oh, absolutely. Globally, you're seeing an intense AI patent race. With China and the US really leading the pack, businesses everywhere are trying to integrate AI manufacturing, healthcare, finance, marketing, you name it.
It's becoming table stakes for many industries.
Increasingly, yes. But it's not just about having AI, it's about trust. AI transparency, security, reliability, these are becoming critical for success. And honestly, many companies are still figuring out how to get real value from their investments, especially in generative AI. It's not automatic. There's also ongoing research into new hardware like neuromorphic chips that mimic the brain structure, which could be more efficient.
And the regulation side, you mentioned concerns earlier.
That's a huge global conversation. How do we manage the risk? You've got the EU's AI Act setting comprehensive rules. In the US, states like Colorado and California are passing laws, and there's talk of a potential federal framework. Trust, privacy, ethics, bias. These are major challenges being debated worldwide.
Okay, so let's tie all these threads together for the new Hollywood generation, the filmmakers coming up now. With AI booming, converging with VR, and reshaping industries globally, what does this mean for them?
It means opportunity, but also complexity. Remember that democratization idea we started with? AI tools, especially within VR, could genuinely empower independent filmmakers. They might be able to create visually stunning, interactive experiences that previously required huge studio budgets.
So potentially leveling the playing field.
That's the hope. The possibility of AI-driven dynamic storytelling, where the narrative adapts to the viewer in an immersive space that opens up entirely new creative territory beyond traditional linear film.
Which leads to some big questions for this generation, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Big, important questions like how do you use these powerful AI tools ethically? Creatively, how do you integrate them into your workflow without losing artistic control or relying on biased algorithms?
And what new kinds of stories even become possible with AI and VR working together? Are we talking interactive films, living worlds?
Exactly. What does cinematic storytelling look like in this new paradigm? And practically, how can indie creators actually leverage this tech? How do they access the tools, learn the skills, reach audiences, and crucially, how do we handle data privacy and security when experiences are potentially tracking user interactions so closely?
These are fundamental challenges and opportunities shaping the future of the medium.
They really are. And looking back at AI's history, those cycles of excitement and caution, it's a reminder that we need to be thoughtful. This convergence with VR is incredibly powerful, but it requires careful consideration, especially from the creators who will define how it's used.
It's been fascinating tracing this arc from ancient myths to today's LLMs and their entry into immersive worlds. A really transformative journey.
It truly is. The speed of change right now is remarkable, and the potential impact on creative fields like filmmaking is just immense.
So as we wrap up, especially for that new Hollywood generation listening, maybe the big question is this. Given everything we've discussed, the history of AI, its ups and downs, its current power surge alongside immersive tech emergence up, what core principles should guide your generation as you build the future of cinematic storytelling? How do you balance pushing boundaries with technology while keeping that vital human connection at the heart of it all?
That's it, isn't it? Balancing the innovation with the human element, that's the challenge and the opportunity right there.
Something powerful to think about. Don't forget to check out the links in the description for more resources on the democratization of filmmaking. You can find more insights on navigating the entertainment industry and achieving success in Orlando Delbert's work, including his book, Pollyanna's Tear-Soaked Battlefields of Hollywood, a survival guide against the cynicism and the hypocritical, and of course, the Hollywood Unapologetic platform. And always remember, you are the key to your own success. You are the new Hollywood generation.
Be informed, be prepared, and most importantly, be great.
That's it. Be great. Good luck out there.
See you next time.